Hello, welcome, and thank you for joining the 2021 Sustainable Agriculture Conference. You have joined the session, Value Adding Herbs and Flowers, Opportunities, Recipes, Regulations, and Regulations. There we go. We are presented, Kim, I'm so excited that I'm like getting ahead of myself. This is Kim, wait, we're practicing Butz, no, Utz potato chips. You gotta help me out.
Butz.
Butz. There we go. We've been practicing, and each time I get it wrong. Kim is our South Carolina local food safety coordinator and overall one of my favorite people. So I'm happy to hang out with here with you all. My name is Ashley. I am CFSA's communications manager, and I'm going to be the workshop host and manage the chat. Please feel free to introduce yourself and put any questions that you have for Kim throughout the workshop in the chat. Kim will be taking those at the end, but it's always good to stockpile those just to make sure that you don't lose track of those. Please remember our conference community agreements and keep them in mind when you engage in the chat or just participate in group discussions. If you haven't seen those, check out the overview in the conference. It's at the top of the menu or the navigation. They're all there. It's basically just be kind to each other. Last but not least, thank you to our session sponsor, which is Whole Foods. You can find out more about them under the sponsors tab. All right, y'all ain't here for me, so I am going to hand it over to Kim.
Yay, thanks, Ashley. So thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. As many of you know me for my food safety work, and trust me, I love food safety, but today I really just wanted to share a little bit about a few of my other passions, those being flowers and herbs. I love mushrooms as well. And then, most importantly, I really love, helping the farms that I work with make more money. So many of the pictures that you're going to see in the presentation today are from my gardens. I've kind of transformed my place into a little permaculture garden, and from basically, the farms that I have worked with over the last few years. So I've been really fortunate to have been taught and influenced by so many herbal growers and practitioners and mentors throughout my life. So it's definitely something that kind of is in the background. As I continue my schooling, and I'm absolutely 6 classes from the finish line, yay. The appreciation and wonder and understanding just, continues to grow stronger. So after today, I'm hoping that you walk away with a little bit of that amazement and appreciation for, everything that surrounds us and the potential that's out there when we step outside that box. I know it's hard sometimes, but it is pretty cool. So I could go on for hours about this and dive deeply into just about every category, but they only gave me an hour. So let's focus on what we know and, what can work well in the Carolinas. I'm going to present a few of the big hitters and then a few of the not so well known, and some that have some money potential. So the goal here is to basically just, explore and learn about how we can maybe add some additional income. So herbs, flowers, and medicinal plants. Every farm that I work with always asks, what can I do to make a little more income? What are the big hitters? Like, what can I do to kind of, step outside? And I always say, one of the most important things is you have to kind of find your niche and that niche product and actually step outside that box a little bit. So, what does that mean? That doesn't mean that we want to abandon everything that, we know and we have. It means that we want to work with what we have and then add to that tool chest, and then, progress into things. So a lot of times I use the analogy, everybody grows zucchini, so what zucchini do you grow? How does it set you with, how does it place you differently than everybody else? And so those are some of the things that we'll kind of take a look at today and explore. Ooh, I want to go back to this. Do you see my little buddy? He posed for my picture. He's kind of hard to see, but post on my echinacea. Anyway, so a little bit about the history. So herbs and flowers and medicinal plants have been used throughout written history and presumably much longer. Evidence indicates 60,000 years all the way back to the Paleolithic age. There are herbals, which are books written by ancient cultures about plants and their medical uses. Some of my studies, particularly one of my herbal classes that I took in school with Dr. Christopher Hobbs, he is just absolutely amazing, and he's internationally renowned. He's an herbalist, an author, a mycologist, and a botanist. And oftentimes in class, he had us use the old herbal books throughout our studies. And I found the writings in these books to be absolutely resourceful, fascinating, and a lot of times very, very funny. And it's just the way that the verbiage is in the old literature, it just kind of cracks you up. But what you do see is that, you know, there's so many years of study behind herbals and plants. Just a couple that I would recommend. I mean, if you're into this kind of thing, the 1845 Culpeper herbal, one of my favorites. And then Pliny the Elder. And he's kind of cool because he was the first to reference hops. We all know what hops is, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So, fun fact, the oldest cultivated herb is the elderflower. So, herbalists absolutely love elder. It's said to be the source material for Pan's pipes, and the elder mother, who's the guardian of the elder trees and the ruler over the gardens in the land of berries. So, elder, as we all know, anti-inflammatory, detoxification, and it's the premier herb used in the prevention and treatment of colds and flu. So, when COVID first started out, that was one of the first things I did. I knew it was going to be crazy, and I knew there was going to be a run on it, and that's exactly what happened. So stocked up on elderberries before it started and made tinctures and syrups and all kinds of good stuff. It's used in a variety of commercially sold products, and it's an ideal candidate for value added. Tinctures are big, lozenges, syrups, you know, like down at the local health food store, one small jar of elderberry syrup that's been infused with a few other things, I mean, it's $38. So a nice way to do some value added there. So we're going to touch off on some of the herbs. You know, I was a chef. I spent 25 years in the food service industry, and fresh colony herbs are just essential for creating those over-the-top flavor profiles. So for culinary use, you know, it's a chef's playground. For medicinal, it's an herbalist tool. So, you know, the two interchange kind of nicely between like medicinal plants and herbs. And as you'll see as I kind of take you through this, that, you know, they work really well together. So we're going to cover basil and tulsi, rosemary, mint, sage, lemon balm, oregano, thyme, and lavender. Culinary herbs, they are very marketable to restaurants, and not just in the kitchens, as I'm going to present to you a little bit later. They sell really well seasonally at the farmers markets, and this is especially true if they are bunched and displayed or bundled with a recipe. You know, we used to do that for our farmers markets. If we had a run on something, let's just say cilantro, we used to, you know, bundle tons of cilantro, put it in a huge basket, and then we would print out little index cards and put them in front of the cilantro for salsas or, you know, anything that cilantro would go into, and people at the farmers market would just love it. So another area of success with culinary herbs is transplants. A lot of times people don't think about that, but if you have the capability and the capacity, if you can seed them and transplant them, people love to buy fresh herbs, you know, in your little transplant packs, you know, in early spring. I mean, they go bonkers for those when the weather breaks and the planting frenzy is on. We actually, through our CSA and our farmers markets, I mean, we used to plant successions specifically for the farmers markets and for our CSA members. So every spring we had a plant sale. And every spring, we were known at the market to be the ones who were going to be bringing all of those packs, whether it be, the herbs or the flowers. We were pretty well known for that, and it was actually very lucrative. So just another way for value added. Pennies on the dollar to get the seed and get them planted, but a really nice profit in making those packs. And then, another thing with the herbs is our CSA members, for those of you who are selling and have a CSA, the members are always really thrilled to find fresh herbs in their boxes. It's just one more key to a little bit more variety. So we'll talk about basil. It was once only able to be grown by noble blood. There are so many different basil varieties available today. It's one of the most popular summer herbs. They're mostly annuals, but they do grow extremely well in the Carolinas, where they can get up to 6 hours of direct sunlight per day. So growing the different varieties just adds value and creates new market opportunities. Some of the ones that we used to sell and people used to, always look forward to, Thai basil. That's imparts that anise flavor, and it's used a lot in the Thai dishes. One of my favorites, Thai basil, fried rice with shrimp. Lemon basil is used in Indonesian cooking, in curries, soups, and stir fries, where it's called kamanji. Here in the States, it pairs nicely with chicken and fish and shrimp and makes a really refreshing summer vinaigrette for your caprese salad. Genovese, the old staple. This makes your incredible pestos. And red ruben, well, that one's known for its intense spicy flavor. And it can also double as a bouquet filler when it's, when it's full and flowering. It has beautiful lavender flowers. So the key to basil is succession, planting, and pruning. We only want to sell those most tender leaves. Tulsi is called and referenced as holy basil. It's the small and steadier culinary counterpart. This basil is grown not only for its amazing properties, but also for its good fortune. It makes a great tea and can be prepared in tinctures, oils, and salves. There are many medicinal uses, which include the treatment of upper respiratory infections. It helps to reduce blood glucose levels and helps to lessen anxiety and stress. It contains eugenol, which has been studied for its anti-inflammatory properties. Makes a fantastic tea. And another, the Tulsi also makes a really nice. It has a reddish stem, so it makes a really nice, filler for your flower bouquets. And we'll get into that also in a little bit. Rosemary. So rosemary, man, it just loves the sunny South Carolina summers. I have it here and it just keeps on going. It's a perennial evergreen, so it does overwinter. It's drought resistant, and it's pretty easy to handy to grow. It's known as the herb of remembrance, and it was used during war commemorations and funerals, a lot of times in Australia and Europe, and it's also been known to be tossed into the graves of the dead. This one has a unique chemistry and boasts the phenolic compounds, which is a class of antioxidants also found in our coffee beans, our olives, our fruits, our veggies, and green tea. It can improve brain function. It supports cardiovascular. It aids in digestion and improves circulation. This is especially true in women's health. And it also makes a killer garlic parmesan or rosemary roasted potato. So as you can see, rosemary works in culinary applications as well as medicinally. And it's used quite often in teas and decoctions and tinctures. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. One of the things that we did on the farm that I managed is, we used to border it in our greenhouses. So we grew it year round. And, we want to make sure we're harvesting those tips, and then it's easily bunched and banded. And the big thing, or one of the cool things about this, is because we overwintered it, we always had something for our winter CSA. And then when the holidays came around, we used to blend it with sage and parsley in time for the holidays. These bundled bring a premium at market. Spearmint or peppermint, which do you prefer? So they're the great debate. When it comes to mint, you either love it or you hate it. And if you love it, wow, there's so many to choose from. We grew and sold several varieties as transplants for our spring plant sale that I talked about. And our farmers markets, but we really didn't grow any mint for bunching or restaurant sales or wholesale. Mostly, mint does okay, but it kind of has a short shelf life once it's harvested. So it doesn't make an ideal crop for anything that's going to be long term. Chocolate mint was always our reigning champ, followed by spearmint, pineapple, apple, and orange. So one of the things about mint, it really likes to take off running and will absolutely grow rampant if you allow it to do so. So this one is best kept in containers if you're just dabbling or you just want to use it as an additional income source for those markets or for your CSA. It can be a lucrative crop. I mean, if you think about it, it's used in so many products, drinks, desserts, salves, lotions, toothpaste, mints, gum, soap, oil. I mean, you name it. And then medicinally, it's used for all kinds of things. So this one does really well in full sun, to partial shade, and it doesn't like really extremes in either direction. So they also like a ton of water. And the nitrogen, any type of nitrogen input will increase their oil content. We want to make sure that we harvest the top 6 to 8 inches before they bloom and then cut them back for the next flush. Sage. Salvia officinalis. It's an ancient and sacred herb belonging to the mint family. It's named for a traditional I can't even say it. Officina is the name for a traditional storeroom for the herbs and medicines within a monastery. It's often described in the old herbals for the many miraculous properties that are attributed to this healing herb. The leaves can be chewed or steeped for tea, and it's great for soothing sore throats. Add a touch of lemon and some thyme to treat colds and flu. And as a culinary herb, it pairs nicely with fatty meats and is just amazing fried and sprinkled on top of just about everything. Also makes a great compound butter, and when tossed with gnocchi is heaven. One of the cool things about sage, it's deer resistant, but the pollinators love it, and it's happiest in full sun. Sales could include culinary, medicinal, and spiritual. White sage, when dried, is commonly used in smudging. So there's lots of different applications. There are people that we did sell sage to, and they used to dry it and then make smudge sticks and sold it at the same farmers market that we were at. Lemon balm, easy to grow in the Carolinas, reaches a little over 3 feet and self-seeds. Real big attractor of honeybees. It's used in both culinary and medicinal applications. Makes an amazing lemon balm cream scone, which we'll get to. The essential oil is popular in aromatherapy, and it works best in teas and tonic elixirs. It'll also help settle the stomach and the nerves. And it's one of the safest garden herbs going and one of the best tasting. So it's also known to lift the spirits. In the genus Melissa, which in Greek means honeybee. So if you have beehives and you want to boost your honey production, this is definitely your herb. And now on to the lemon balm cream scones. So whenever I make these, I started making these, 20 years ago. And, kids love them. I love them. We love them. I love lemon balm. So one of the recipes that I like to use is a cream tea scone. King Arthur is always my brand of choice when it comes to any of those products. And there's a recipe here for this. Basically, you use the scone recipe and then add a little bit of fresh lemon zest and a cup of finely chopped lemon balm. And then for the all-in, I mean, if you're really going all in, try slathering them with fresh blueberry preserves. They're absolutely delicious. So lemon balm can also be sold culinary. Oregano, known as the brightness of the mountain. It's not really truly herbaceous. It's a flowering plant. It's related to and the cousin of marjoram. Has several cultivars and is an absolute must in every kitchen. So whether you're topping pizza, making marinara, or seasoning lamb, it provides an earthy, warm, intense flavor. It can be an easy sell to Italian, Latin, and Mediterranean restaurants. Just note that you would need the different cultivars to make everybody happy. And this is kind of one area I find that farmers don't really pay a lot of attention to the ethnic potential that surrounds them. There are whole markets to be tapped when you discover what their food needs are. I've worked with several farms, actually, one in particular that really honed in on the surrounding area and what ethnicities were in that surrounding area. And she grows all kinds of really cool stuff to satisfy, what they need. And she's become really well known for growing specifically to support those communities. This one's also deer resistant, attracts loads of bees, butterflies, and pollinators. It loves full sun and enjoys a dry soil. A little bit limey, that'll make it happy. It overwinters well. This would be another one that would be great for the greenhouse or the high tunnel. From a medicinal perspective, it's the king of antimicrobial. The two compounds, terpenes, thymol and carvacrol, make it a very potent broad spectrum antimicrobials. And studies have shown it to be really effective against a lot of pathogens, including Listeria and MRSA. So Listeria is in my world all the time in, Harmonized Gap and teaching that to farms. So this one, you can do teas and tinctures and oils, but you have to be really kind of careful with the oil, especially if it's concentrated. You want to be sure to dilute it. So many species, so little time. Another perennial that enjoys full sun and a well-drained soil. There are over 350 species of thyme. Old English thyme is the most popular, has the most healing properties, and was once used as an embalming agent in Egyptian times. Chefs like to use it in savory dishes, and it gives poultry that welcome to Thanksgiving vibe. It bunches really well, holds up nicely, and makes a great addition to your market herbal baskets. This is one of the ones that, I would bunch as a trifecta with sage and rosemary for the holidays. And trust me, your CSA members won't complain when they find this in their Thanksgiving CSA box. This one's good for upper respiratory issues, colds and flu, and really helps to break up mucus and congestion. So tea is kind of the favorite one here, but it can be tinctured. And you can find it also in your health food store in syrups and different lozenges. Lavender, the best for last. I love the fragrance of lavender, and I like working with it for, making my lotions. It's herbaceous perennial. It's super versatile. It's used in culinary, cosmetic, and medicinal applications. It loves full sun and well-drained soil. That makes it happy. It doesn't like wet feet, and it won't do well in areas of high humidity. Although I'm starting to see more and more production throughout the Carolinas, even with, some of the humidity that we do have here. Different cultivars that work a little bit better than others. And I'm actually working with 2 farms that are actually really starting to gain steam on this, and starting to expand. You'll see that in a minute. English lavender is best for medicinal and cosmetic purposes, whereas, the French lavender is kind of the ticket for culinary, particularly for herbes de Provence. In cooking, it imparts an intense flavor, especially when dry. So the key here is to start off small and add. It's used to flavor desserts and often a garnish of choice for our pastry chefs. And medicinally, it can be made into infusions, tinctures, and oils, essential oils. And it's used to lift the spirits, relax the mind and body, and promote happy sleep. All right, so let's not forget about our bartenders. So, anyone familiar with the restaurant industry will tell you that the money is made from what is concocted behind that bar. The food cost of a restaurant is heavily supported by its liquor sales. A great cocktail or mocktail is just as important as the food sometimes, and there's nothing worse than getting a bleh drink. So, there's a solid demand for those unique, seasonal, and great tasting beverages. Your proof is at your hipster bars and your high-end restaurant cocktail menus. So, one of the things that I always say to, my small farms who are selling directly to restaurants is, when you make that sales pitch to the chefs, don't forget to include your bartenders. You're not going to regret that. They're happy to twist, scorch, muddle, and infuse your herbs into all of their favorite concoctions. Some of the favorites, basil, rosemary, mint, lemon balm, hibiscus, which I'll talk about in a little bit, and lavender, all good sellers to the restaurants. People seem to always forget there are two sides. Also, your pastry chefs, depending on what's going on. So we're going to talk flowers, market goers, CSA members, and florists. Yes, please. We're going to touch on, a few of the basics. I kind of picked out the ones that A, I'm familiar with, and B, the ones that'll do real well here, and C, the ones that are pretty easy to get started with. And a lot of farms, when I say flowers, they look at me like I'm crazy. There's a lot of money potential in flowers, and there's lots of different avenues that you can go. Who doesn't love cut flowers? I mean, they brighten a room, they bring a smile, and, they warm the heart, and they're at the center of just about every event. So we used to sell them bunched at the farmer's market. We offered them as a flower share in our CSA. And trust me, they sell, and they also demand a premium price. So again, picked out a few of the top bloomers for bouquets. What can be grown in our region, and most importantly, what can get established and be maintained on a busy farm. So really, the possibilities are endless. We did a lot of our flowers on drip irrigation. It works well. It reduces those bacteria, the bacteria and fungal and powdery mildews. We want to make sure that we're careful on spacing. As you'll hear, some like to be crowded, some don't like to be crowded. We want to make sure that we're keeping good circulation to keep down those mildews. And the key to flowers is, cut. You want to keep cutting. You need them on a regular schedule, and it's important to keep those blooms rolling. You want to make sure that you're harvesting either really late or really early or late in the evening. And when you're harvesting, making sure that you're getting directly into, a 5-gallon bucket and water. And then you want to kind of put them to bed. I always used to have our crew cut them. We used to do a little bit of solution in the bottom of the bucket. You can use something that's already that you can buy. But you could also do sugar, lemon juice, and bleach. When I say bleach, people look at me like I'm crazy, but no, that actually works really well. Just a little bit to help preserve them. And then when we were done harvesting, they went right into the walk-in, and we let them go. So, we'll talk a little bit about bouquets, but to add textures, we talked already a little bit, adding greens and additional flowers to round out your bouquets. You can use, dill and fennel and basils and amaranths and purple majesty and, sweet peas, borage, and on and on and on and on and on. A lot of times what's on the farm can easily be used. So they are the star attraction in a paper bouquet, and rightfully so. They're stunning, and there's so many colors and sizes to choose from. They're basically a farm favorite because once they're planted and established, these sunflowers, they're kind of a set it and forget it kind of flower. They grow super fast, are really productive, and are easily harvested with that, 5-gallon bucket and a snips. The key to this, succession planning. So, we started early and would, plant every 10 to 14 days. And that took us all the way through to the first frost. If you can set them on drip, you're in great shape, and you're kind of off to the races. So, our sunflowers, we bought all kinds of varieties. We had a mix of reds and yellows and oranges and, bright yellows. They were beautiful. We bought, and I'm going to kind of tag a few of the places that I'm familiar with that we used to buy from, but we bought a lot from Johnny's. And then we just mixed them up to the season. And then the other thing, another market that you could tap into, florists. They love them and they can be sold direct. So, here is another sales option for sunflowers. And I actually have a farm that I'm working with that is absolutely selling them directly to a florist as well as his markets and his CSAs, and does really well with them. By the stem. Peonies, it's named after Painon, who is a student of the Greek god of medicine. This is a herbaceous perennial, and they're perfect for temperate regions. So there's a couple different types of peonies. There's bush and then there's stem. They bloom late spring and early summer, and are great for adding those pops of color to your bouquet. They do die back in fall and reappear in spring. And there are 6 types of flowers in the cultivars and several hybrids. They want to be harvested when just starting to open. That's kind of the key. You don't, obviously, in flowers, you don't want to have anything that's already popped fully open. And these beauties will last over a week with, proper care. So a little bit of a feed solution and good water. Rebecca, aka cone flowers, or black-eyed Susans. These come in a variety of striking colors, and they're both heat and drought tolerant for those Carolina summers, and are easy and productive. And as you can see, there's all kinds. Dahlias, my favorite flower. They're stunning. They come in a variety of colors. They have a really long growing season. They totally enjoy full sun. They do struggle in the cold, so we don't want to get those into the soil, those bulbs into the soil until the soil is nice and warm. We won't want to rush them. You bed them 9 to 12 inches apart. You drip and trellis, and excuse my cat is coming to join us. No mulch. They like warm feet. So there are many available outlets for their tubers. Shop your options, but note they do go really quickly. So we would get them early and store them in our warm walk-in prior to planting, especially the really pretty ones. They're gone quickly. Zinnias, they're an annual. They're a great cutting flower. They have erect stems. They're daisy-like flower heads, and they grow quick and bloom super heavy. They offer lots of unique varieties and colors, and it's said that they symbolize thoughts of absent friends. They come in single, double, semi-double flowers, and lots of shapes. Beehive, button, and cactus. There's just tons of options. This one's a direct seed, 1/4 inch deep and thin, good circulation, and they don't really like transplanting. They do full sun and will thrive with a good dose of compost. They love compost. Oh, and did I mention they are totally deer resistant? So also can be grown as a protector of those that are not. Straw flowers, these are really, really cool. And I just had my first interaction with these this year, and I absolutely love them. They look great in just about anything. And as you can see, I just basically tossed them on my shelf over here. But they're an amazing, amazing little flower. One of the really cool things, I picked them off and I threw them into a little Ziploc bag, and I brought them home and threw them on my desk. I was working with one of my farms. And as I looked over it, I noticed they had completely closed back up in the plastic bag when they were deprived of oxygen. And I was like, oh no, I ruined them. They were tight into a ball. I took them out of the plastic bag and they opened right back up. Took a little while, but opened right back up. I thought that was pretty darn cool. Anyway, they love full sun. They love the heat. They're drought resistant. They also like compost. And for these, there's really no staking necessary. Just want to make sure to keep deadheading, and you are good to go for the season. Snapdragons, nice pops of color, sturdy stems. Again, I really like the Rocket Mix by Johnny's. That always did really well by us. It gives a very nice tall stem snapdragon. We always started them from seed and then transplanted. Did I mention that when you are seeding, if you have the room, plant extras? Those are also a huge seller in your transplant packs in spring. Take them to the market with you with your herbs, or put them into your CSA box. People love them. Just an additional money maker while you're waiting for the actual blooms to start popping. Edible flowers. This is something that as a chef I used to use quite a bit. We certainly didn't have many years ago the options that we have nowadays, but I'm just going to quick talk about a few that are that come to mind and that I'm seeing my farms use and selling a bunch of. Who would have thought? I mean, back in the day, that was kind of a luxury to be able to afford to buy edible flowers. But man, nowadays chefs can't get enough. They love them. They're typically sold just by the flower. And talk about value added. I mean, this is a great little money stream. I have one farm that planted just 3 little beds, and they were dedicated to just the edibles. And he was selling 150 to 200 flowers weekly for the season. I mean, crazy. Borage. Borage is one of them. Bees love it. It helps them to create that nice light honey. You can eat the flowers, the leaves, and the stems. And it tastes a little bit like cucumbers. This was one that we grew on the farm as well. It's also a companion plant. So it's said to protect or nurse our legumes, our spinach, our brassicas, tomatoes, and strawberries. Pliny the Elder, as I talked about in the beginning, said that borage was the nepenthe, which is that chases away sorrow, which caused forgetfulness when mixed with wine. Thought that was always funny. Pansies. They're mild, they're colorful on the palate. They have a hint of perfume, wintergreen, or bubblegum, depending on your taste buds. And most of the time they taste like baby lettuce, that very green, yummy taste. They also make an excellent dessert flower and are often candied by our pastry chefs to provide some longevity. Marigolds, mildly citrusy and often referred to as the poor man's saffron. This over here, it's in the next picture. You can grow, lots of different color varieties, the jumbos or the regulars. It makes no difference. The chefs will buy them both. Plant a variety of colors to keep it fresh. They bloom all summer. And again, deadheading these is the key. They are susceptible to mildew, so you want to make sure that they have good air circulation. And I like to see them on, netting for support. This is a picture of some of the edibles that we harvested the 1 week for our restaurant sales. And as you can see, you have the jumbos in there. You have the pansies in there and all the different edibles. That was for one restaurant. Hibiscus. It's an all-purpose plant. These images that I am showing you here are actually taken from a friend's farm. It's just absolutely amazing. These are carefree plants. They have very little pest pressure, and the fruit, the flowers, and the leaves are edible. Tea, as we all know, hibiscus tea is the most common use, but it absolutely can be made into jellies and relishes and kombucha and on and on. It's actually really closely related to okra, and they do much better with the shorter days. So they're more of a fall crop. And actually, I'll show you on the next one. This is when they're now starting to pop. The blooms themselves only last a day or so, and then the calyx, aka the fruit, is ready for harvest. So this was a container harvested for one of the restaurants. Actually, every restaurant down here now is just clamoring to get this hibiscus to use in the restaurants. Nasturtiums. I love nasturtiums. They're really easy to grow. One can indulge on the leaves and the flowers, and they are very tasty. They're peppery, spicy. They also make a really nice hanging basket and command a premium price at market. So we used to do the transplant packs. We used to do hanging baskets. And then, now, you can sell them as edibles to your local markets. They go well at farmers markets as well. So heading into medicinal plants, I did touch on a couple of them here. There are so many medicinal plants. I just wanted to kind of talk about the ones that are, pretty known and have significant impact for health. So echinacea, the snake bite remedy, was an Indian remedy that was given to us a long time ago. And everybody knows echinacea. There's purpurea and angustifolia, and those are the two that are kind of used interchangeably. It's famous for preventing and treating cold and infections, and there have been hundreds and hundreds of studies done that show that it works, and it works really well. Works best, when it started at the first sign of a cold. And then it's dependent on, your dosing, your freshness, and your quality. That always plays a part in, how well some of these tinctures and oils and things work. This one has a real buzzy taste. The stronger, the better. The roots and the seeds give the most bang for the buck. Echinacea is also known for treating skin conditions, thus the snake bite remedy, like infections and bites and stings. It can be used as a compress or turned into salve or cream. Tinctures are the most favorable in this one. Calendula, the pot marigold. This is the one for anything skin. You name it, it works. I do a ton of calendula salve and oil to treat cuts and scrapes and burns. I've always had it around for the kids. Diaper rash, ulcers, chapped lips, insect bites. It's been my go-to. Always been my go-to. You want to use the whole flower head on this one in any of your preparations. And then if you have sensitive skin, you want to kind of be careful. You want to go slow with this one because it does have properties that can be irritating. And if you have an ulcer, make a tea. Chamomile, this amazing aromatic plant will churn out abundant daisy-like flowers and it's just amazing. The smell is amazing. I love harvesting chamomile. Your hands get all sticky and the smell is amazing. It's used, the flowers are used to basically, make teas quite often. It's used to calm the mind and the body and to soothe the belly. A lot of times it's used with herbalists in children, so for calm and comfort. It also works for teething. German chamomile is, should be your first choice. It's the best tasting. This one, like I said, dried for tea is best, and it's a great indulgence before bedtime to kind of turn it off. This is one of the ones that likes to be crowded, so plant accordingly. Ginger, who doesn't love ginger? I grow it every year, and this rhizome is what is cherished. It can be turned into so many things: candy, pickled for sushi, vinegar, tea, beer, honey, wine, you name it. I use it for all of that. And for all my bourbon lovers, it's amazing infused into a really good bourbon. Pair that with a little blackstrap bitters and some pear liquor. Yum. This one's used for digestive problems and works to settle the stomach with nausea. It's what it's most famous for. This is also a great value-added possibility. The larger the rhizome piece, the faster the ginger will be produced, and therefore the faster you can sell it. Hops, can you say beer? Everyone knows this one. It's the main flavoring ingredient in beer, and it gives us that nice bitter taste that so many of us have learned to love. What many people probably don't know is that it's often used in herbal medicine to promote sleep and relaxation. It has so many other uses too. It's used in nervousness and restlessness and excitability due to its sedative effects. Also has estrogenic properties, so male drinkers beware. That's how we got man boobs. Midwives use it to stimulate new mother's milk production. It's a vine. It grows up to and over 30 feet and can be grown in the Carolinas. As a matter of fact, we have a small plot on our farm at Lomax. Turmeric. This is another plant where the rhizome is what's cherished. The root contains a very strong anti-inflammatory substance. It's huge in the herbal world for its healing and anti-inflammatory properties. We use it in teas and extracts to treat arthritis and cancer. There's been research on that. I actually did a paper on it, which was pretty amazing. The results: heart conditions, digestive problems, and liver issues. And in the culinary world, it gives curry its amazing color. Chefs love it. This is tropical, and kind of like the ginger, it doesn't really do well in cold, so it does not overwinter. So it needs to be either in pots or a heated greenhouse to get through some of our frosty winters. We're going to jump into value added. Value added, as defined by the USDA, is a change in the physical state or form of the product. And such as milling wheat into flour or making strawberries into jam. The production of a product in a manner that enhances its value as demonstrated through a business plan, such as organically produced products. So I'm just going to run through a few of the ones that I have come across or absolutely know well. Edible flours, we talked about those. When you add edible flours, corn syrup, sugar-flavored oils, a pour pot, molds, and a candy thermometer, you're in the candy business. And I have a farmer who's selling these to restaurants and at the farmer's market and as a buy-on for their CSA. And people are going crazy for them. So bartenders are using them where they're cutting the stick at the top and just resting it on the rim of the glass. So, and these are gaining a lot of momentum and are getting top dollar. So I was floored at how quickly these took off. So edible flours made into candy would fall under the cottage food law in South Carolina with no permit required. Candied ginger. Thanks, Gina, for this one. She makes a killer candied ginger. And when I was putting this together, I thought this would be a really cool value added. And so I went to her right off, and here it is. So candied ginger, so long as it is, or any of the herbs or teas are sold as a food, no health claims. This would also not require a food establishment permit through South Carolina Department of Ag. Scrubs and sachets. There are so many options when it comes to these. I talked about a little bit about that lavender farm. So this is a lavender sugar scrub and a lavender sachet from a farm that I work with in South Carolina. They are currently growing blueberries and have been for a long time, but they started dabbling in produce and now lavender, and they're really looking to expand and doing actually quite well with it. Infused oils and vinegars. The one on the right is tarragon vinegar that I make. I just buy white wine vinegar from Aldi's and make all of my own vinegars. Herbal oils are huge. They're a little bit trickier and require production in a commercial kitchen just because of the properties. This one is best to discuss with your state Department of Ag based on what is allowed and what is not. The herb infused vinegars, they're A-OK, don't require a permit because of the acidity, the pH. It's considered low risk. We talked about these market bouquets, and this is exactly what we used to do. We used to put together the bouquets, we would harvest, put the flowers to rest, and then throw the bouquets together on Friday for Saturday and Sunday markets. And people would line up at the market waiting to get these into their hands. Bunched herbs, as we talked about, just a different way to put them together and sell them. To your restaurants, to your markets. People love them. Dried herbs, easily done. I mean, when you're doing dried herbs, you need a lot of production. This doesn't really work for everyone. Not too much to do, though. If you do want to dry them and sell them, one of the big things is just making sure that your water content is good. North Carolina wants to assure that the process you use to achieve your drying, you've maintained that water activity, and prefer that you have a test done, and that can be done through the state extension, NC State. As far as South Carolina is concerned, it doesn't require that retail food establishment permit. They're fine. Your different teas, chamomile and hibiscus, they make great teas. Recommended, dry 1 part to 10 parts. And if you're using fresh, 2 to 3 ounces to 10 ounces, they don't require anything as well as far as a permit when making your teas. Tinctures and decoctions, this is one of my favorite things to do. The one on the left, elderberry, mint, cinnamon, and ginger. That's like my go-to winter tincture. And then the one on the right is foraged turkey tails, which I turned into a decoction because it's the best way to do it. And that's also for immunity. And during times of COVID, these were always stocked. So when you make a tincture, it's an herb and a menstruum, 2 to 3 ounces of fresh herbs, flowers, leaves, bark, seeds, whatever, roots, and then, or 1 ounce of dried, and then, typically to 5 ounces of vodka or grain alcohol. I like to use grain alcohol, just because it gives, a better product. Then decoctions are made using, the woody parts, roots, bark, seed, same proportions. And then you're going to boil that and then reduce and simmer up to an hour. These don't fall under state. This rolls right into federal. The regulations are kind of vague when it comes to tinctures. And I'd rather not dabble in it, only to say that it's not very regulated. Herbal infused honey. This one you have to be careful. The options are obviously endless. I love infused honey. And for our honey producers and our growers, this creates a really nice marriage. But departments of ag are definitely, because you're doing that cut process and infusing it in something that will not have a kill step. They are regulated. They need to be done in a commercial kitchen. You need to have the permitting for it. And so that's a whole nother whole nother go. Salves and creams and balms, another thing that you can, another area that you can dive into. And I have a recipe here for just a typical balm. Here I thought was pretty cool. We have farms that are growing hydroponically their herbs and their flowers for continuous sales. Laws and regulations. So, I said I was going to touch on this a little bit, not too much. Whenever you're doing prepared, you have to follow your local, state, and federal rules. Each state has their own licensing, permitting, and inspection protocol. Cottage laws are also different from state to state. North and South Carolina require applications, permitting, and inspection. And as I said, FDA regulates botanical dietary supplements. The cottage law, it's a great opportunity to add additional revenue by making and selling food with the items grown on the farm. States can or cannot adopt cottage law. North Carolina does not. Only non-potentially hazardous foods that do not require time and temperature for food safety can be produced in the home kitchen. And then everyone producing food in a home kitchen or in a licensed commercial kitchen needs to follow CGMPs, which are good manufacturing practices. And food can only be sold directly to consumers through farmers markets, roadside stands, or CSAs. This is not an area where, it can be sold in retail. CGMPs, current good manufacturing practices. This is enforced by the FDA. It's the foundation for food manufacturers to successfully minimize food safety risks. The key areas that we talk about in this are our workers, our ingredients, our equipment, and our process, and our buildings. I'm not going to dive any deeper than that. But I always suggest anybody who is processing or handling low-risk food, or food for that matter, should have training. That being said, we, Chloe and myself, also with National Farmers Union, we have a grant where we've put together these webinars to help out our farms. We have 3 chances to attend: December 3rd, January 21st, or March 11th. So good idea to check that out. And then South Carolina resources. I threw together some resources, so this will be available. Obviously, you can check out the cottage food laws on South Carolina Department Ag. And then Clemson also has a really great fact sheet to help you out. And North Carolina also has, some great resources through Extension, through Department of Ag. So that is available. And that is that. I hope everybody had learned something today and enjoyed the presentation. So I guess I'll turn it over to Ashley. Are there questions?
Oh, are there, Kim? There are so many questions.
Oh no!
Where to even begin? Okay, I took notes all along the way, and there were a couple of people that had bigger questions. So while we're kind of on this regulation front, Scotty was asking for edibles sold to restaurants. How do you process or handle, such as washing, storage, packing, or packaging? How do you handle those plants from harvest until you get them to the actual restaurant?
Sure. Well, it's really important. I mean, obviously, if we're doing them for edibles, that we want to really, absolutely positively minimize any kind of, chemical applications, pesticides, insecticides, etc. We do not, the farms that I work with do not use any type of chemicals. So that would be one. And then 2, just making sure that, we're getting those harvested and into refrigeration shelf life specifically, but not too many. I wouldn't see too many other food safety concerns. And then they're packaged. We packaged them into clamshells. So depending on what it is that they were buying or how many they were buying, they just got packaged into clamshells and labeled. And of course, whenever you're selling to anyone, you want to make sure that you have your label with your farm name, your farm address, all your contact information, harvest date, that type of thing. So it's quick to be able to be traced back in the event there should be an issue, but very minimal.
Awesome. Do you, Kendra asked earlier in the presentation, we were talking about flowers. Do you have any input on how to set bouquet or stem prices? And Kendra was saying they struggle with knowing how to factor in the labor and time costs into setting their prices. So any guidance there?
Yeah, sure. So, and it's a tough one because it's very location specific. So, you want to be careful. You have to factor all of that in, obviously. So you have to factor in, what does it cost for you to put that plant together, and then how much time does it take to harvest versus how much time does it take to bunch versus how much time does it take to get to market. So, we would sell our bouquets. We actually did two different sizes. And, at our markets, we were in some of the bigger markets, the Philly market, when I was in Pennsylvania. So, $15, $20, now down here, some of them are getting, 10, 15. It all depends. I'm going to say it's really based on where your market is located and what people are willing to pay for them. I mean, people would not even think twice about grabbing a $20 bouquet and heading down the road where I was at.
Awesome. And on that note, April had a question, which I'll put here along the bottom, which is, do you have a book that you reference, or what's your recipe on flower preserver mixture when you mentioned the water and the bleach?
Yeah, absolutely. Johnny's. So if I hate to keep shouting out just one specific, vendor, but it's what I'm very familiar with. So Johnny's has a great. Actually, they have a starter set. They have recipes. There's recipes online, but it's like 2 teaspoons of bleach. It's a little bit of lemon juice and a little bit of sugar. We had a recipe initially, but then basically just no more than 2 teaspoons of bleach per, like a gallon of water. And that in a 5-gallon bucket, we used to do, a gallon to a gallon and a half of water just to keep those stems, feeding. A little bit of sugar, a little bit of lemon juice, you're good to go. And like I said, you can absolutely just buy, plant food or plant preservative in big buckets. Every once in a while we would do that too, depending on funds. So, same.
Yeah, and Kendra shared with the group that they have sold white alyssum to restaurants pretty consistently. They smell great and it's pretty easy. So I thought you'd appreciate knowing that.
Absolutely.
April commented that their hibiscus is just now starting to open their blooms. When is the time to harvest for tea and seeds? But it sounds like now.
It absolutely now. So as soon as those petals drop, yes. And then you can pull the seed from you can pull the seed, but you want to wait till as soon as the flower petals drop is when you want to harvest. I mean, that's the peak. You want to let them drop, harvest.
Awesome. And in that vein, I mean, I think this might be pretty similar. What about rose hips? Do you have any experience harvesting those? Kendra's thinking about getting some roses next year, and just what does that look like?
They're amazing. I love it. But honestly, I am a rose killer. So I just am. I never have luck with roses. So, whenever somebody's like, oh, we're going to do roses, I'm like, I'm out. So you don't want me anywhere near them. I have to look at them. I just have to look at them and I will kill them. So it is what it is. Sorry.
One of the questions that I actually had is I've had trouble growing nasturtiums in baskets. I've had great success in fields or in garden beds. Do you have a recommended go-to variety for hanging baskets if someone wanted to prepare those for market?
Johnny's seed. And we used to do, so when we did our baskets, we used an organic mix. We supplemented with compost. We made our own mix of of soil, and then did our from seed and then into from the transplants into the baskets. So we would do 5 to a basket, to a hanging basket, and then just basically started them in the greenhouse, and so they were nice and warm, and then took them out and hardened them and threw them on the truck for harvest. And they did really well. I mean, from transplant.
Gotcha. That's helpful. Thank you. The last question, I think we're on the last question, is April is asking about two questions. When you were talking about processing ginger and the lollipops, is there any permit needed? April, were you talking about at large or in North Carolina? I made a note and I didn't fully. Oh yeah, in North Carolina, is any permit needed?
Yeah, no, not that I'm aware of. And it's always best to go through your state department of agriculture for this. Now, South Carolina, I asked specifically just because I have the relationship with them, and the reason that they're saying, which I'm almost positive would be the same for North Carolina, is because you're taking it through a process, so you're heating it. So you're getting that corn syrup and sugar mixture up to your 212 plus degrees to make your candy, and then your flour is into your mold, and you're pouring your hot syrup onto that, and it almost constitutes a kill step. So they absolutely didn't have an issue.
Awesome. And the last question from April is, any experience with Yaupon tea? Or any Yaupon plants, processing them for tea?
No. Sorry.
That's all right. You can't know it all. There are a lot of plants and possibilities out there. As y'all saw, you can do a lot with these plants.
Oh, and you know what? I actually asked I asked Sean Silva from North Carolina Department of Ag this morning about the lollipop, so I might be able to. And he just answered me. So
while you read through that, y'all, thank you for so many questions here. Ooh, she looks like she knows.
Yeah, it looks like like I said, we're A-okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for these questions. Kim, how can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more or carry on the conversation? How can they get in touch?
Oh, cool. Yeah. I mean, I'm on CFSA's website, or they can reach out to me at kimandcarolinafarmstewards.org. My cell phone is, I think, on the website. So yeah, under staff, you can find me, and I'd be happy to help.
Absolutely. And Kim, any parting words? Like, are there any awesome farmers in the Carolinas that are doing some of this stuff? So if people want to follow them on Instagram or just watch them from afar and learn, who are you excited about that people should keep an eye on?
I'm excited about all of my farmers. I mean, they all do an amazing job. Mike Leadin Farms, he is just like, yeah, he's amazing at what he does. He's always stepping outside the box, does some really cool stuff. Alter Cross is starting to dabble in lavender and has made the amazing scrubs. But I mean, there's so many farms out there to mention, but they all do an amazing job with what they do. Saltcatcher Farms does a great job with flowers and chamomiles and calendulas. So yeah, sweetgrass. I mean, I could just keep naming them.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, April says this was one of their favorite workshops. It's useful and it's fun. Kendra said wonderful. I think this is a time where we would all clap for you. So just thank you for sharing all of this, and thank you for making yourself available. Kim is in doing farm visits all the time as a part of our farm services team and a food safety extraordinaire. So if you have questions, Kim can certainly be a resource. And if you want to work with Kim or Kim's on a team of a couple different people. You can just scroll to the bottom of the page that you're already on watching this, and there should be a link, or if you click to the Gap Consulting page, or you can click Kim's profile and it'll take you there, or just be on the website. You'll find it. But just know there's a lot of ways to continue the conversation, and some of this stuff can seem tricky, but there are a lot of people doing it well, and there's a lot of opportunity there. So don't be intimidated. There could be a real market for you.
Yeah, and there are a lot of farmers. I mean, I haven't met a farmer yet who is not willing to help each other out. So, there's a lot of support out there. So don't be afraid. Reach out, ask for help. We're all here for you.
Absolutely. Well, Kim, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for all of you for watching, and thank you to Whole Foods for sponsoring this session. We're going to close it out. Don't forget to drop a rating in the box below if you have feedback for CFSA or for Kim. We'd love to know how you like the workshop. So have a great day.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Ashley.
My pleasure.